What if someone told you that the future is being decided right now? What if a single insect bite could send you on a journey beyond time and space to show you what our world will look like in 20 years? This incredible story of Maria doesn't just amaze, it makes us think about our actions and the choices we make every day. From the beauty of the year 2042 to the shocking alternatives she witnessed, every vision carries an important message for humanity. Want to know what awaits us and how we can change it? Watch this video until the very end, you won't be able to stay indifferent. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the most fascinating stories about life, death, and the future. Because this is only the beginning. That evening, fall had already softly claimed its place. The sky was painted in orange and pink hues, and a cool breeze whispered through the trees. Maria, as usual, went out to her garden, a place where she could forget the worries of the day and simply enjoy the moment. Her garden was her sanctuary, where every flower was nurtured with love, and every plant told its own story. She noticed that one of her rose bushes had bloomed especially beautifully. The roses gave off a rich fragrance that mingled with the damp air of the evening garden. What a wonder of nature, she thought, bending over the bush to remove a dried leaf. At that moment, she felt a sharp sting in her right hand. It was as if a hot needle had pierced her skin. Maria jerked her hand back and saw a tiny insect that seemed to glow in the rays of the setting sun. It froze for a moment and then, with a flick of its transparent wings, disappeared into the dense foliage. "What was that?" she whispered, slightly confused. The bite was small, almost unnoticeable, but the spot quickly began to redden and swell. A sense of unease crept into her heart, but she tried to calm herself. Maybe it's just a bee or a spider, she thought. Minutes later, Maria felt her breathing grow labored, and the world around her started to spin. Her head filled with a strange noise, like the distant rumble of an approaching storm. She tried to take a deep breath, but her chest seemed to tighten, preventing the air from coming in. She staggered, her legs felt like they were made of cotton. Panic began to grip her mind. She knew something was wrong. Clutching at the branches for support, Maria made her way toward the house. Every second felt like an eternity. Her vision blurred, but she could see the dim light from the kitchen window. "Home. I'm almost home," she whispered, struggling to reach the doorstep. When she finally made it to the door, her strength left her. She collapsed to her knees and then completely crumpled, her head softly touching the cold surface of the porch. Inside, a dull thud echoed, and her husband, hearing the sound, rushed to the door. Seeing his wife lying motionless, he called out her name, but there was no response. Grabbing his phone, he called for an ambulance, his voice trembling with fear. "Please, come quickly. She's not breathing." Maria felt nothing more. Her body lay still, as if time had stopped. But her consciousness, as she would later recount, began its journey toward the light. When Maria awoke, she immediately realized something had changed. The world around her was entirely different, motionless, yet incredibly alive. She saw her body lying on the doorstep of her home, her husband kneeling beside her with trembling hands, and medics hurriedly unpacking their equipment. Everything was happening, but it seemed like it was in slow motion, wrapped in an unrelenting silence. She wanted to scream, "I'm here. I'm fine." But no sound escaped her lips. At that moment, she understood that her voice, her body, no longer belonged to her. She was surrounded by a soft golden haze that seemed to breathe, pulsating with invisible waves. It wasn't a frightening sensation, rather, it was calming. Her fear began to dissolve, replaced by a growing curiosity. She took a step forward, though she couldn't feel her feet or the ground beneath her. Each step left behind faint golden trails that vanished almost immediately. Suddenly, the space around her began to shift. Dense light swirled into a vortex, and she felt herself being gently carried away by an unseen current, as if an invisible wind was pulling her out of the familiar world. Her body became weightless, like a feather, and with it came a feeling of complete freedom. She found herself in a tunnel, but it wasn't an ordinary tunnel. It seemed to be woven from pure light. On its walls flowed shimmering colors, hues she had never seen before. These colors were more than just colors, they radiated emotions. Warm pink filled her with joy, deep blue brought peace, and golden tones wrapped her in love. In the middle of the tunnel, sounds began to emerge, though it wasn't music or words. It was a voice that spoke directly to her soul. She didn't hear it with her ears but understood every word as if they had always been a part of her. Maria, do not fear. You are at the threshold between worlds. At the far end of the tunnel, the light began to condense, becoming dazzling yet not blinding. Within this light, she saw a silhouette, a being radiating warmth and love beyond description. It was something greater than an angel or a person. It was everything: light, energy, knowledge, and yet it felt incredibly familiar. Do you wish to stay here? The being asked, its voice filling the space around her like waves in the ocean. Maria felt her heart swell with both longing and hope. She realized there was no pain, no fear here, only peace. But before she could answer, the being gently continued, your time has not yet come, but there is something you must see. With these words, the space around her began to change again. Light swirled around her, transforming into images and scenes she couldn't yet comprehend. But one thing was clear, something extraordinary awaited her. She surrendered to the process, letting go of everything she had known and allowing herself to be carried into the unknown. When the light around Maria dissipated, she found herself standing on the edge of a high cliff overlooking a breathtaking scene. Below her stretched an immense panorama of the future. Across vast plains, cities sprawled, completely unlike those she had known. Instead of concrete and glass, there were green rooftops, vertical gardens, and skyscrapers that resembled massive trees. This is the year 2042, said the soft yet deep voice of the angel. Maria noticed how the city pulsed with life, but not chaos. It seemed as though humanity and nature had achieved harmony. The air was crystal clear, the sky a vivid blue. On the streets below, self-driving cars floated just above the ground. In some areas, people soared on small, personal flying devices, resembling graceful birds. She saw children playing in parks where trees and plants created living mazes. Solar panels and advanced devices, seemingly drawing energy directly from the air, were everywhere. Technology has transformed the world, the angel explained, as though reading her thoughts. But that is only one side. Maria looked closer and noticed shadows looming behind the perfect buildings in the distance. The scene abruptly shifted. She saw fragmented groups of people arguing, and sometimes even fighting. Their faces were twisted with anger and fear. Despite progress, humanity has not rid itself of its inner conflicts, said the angel. He showed her scenes where people protested and blamed one another. The disagreements centered on the same issues as always: power, resources, and faith. But that's not all, the angel continued, and the world changed again. Now Maria saw images of destruction. Hurricanes, floods, and wildfires ravaged cities. Giant tsunamis swallowed coastal areas, and the land in some places appeared trampled by massive, invisible forces. Nature is retaliating for centuries of neglect, said the angel. But this is not a sentence, it is a warning. Maria felt a wave of pain sweep through her heart. How could this happen? She asked, unable to hold back her tears. Humanity made tremendous progress, the angel replied, but it lost something essential, its spiritual connection. Technology gave people power, but it didn't make them wiser. The angel gestured toward a group of people standing in a circle, holding hands and praying despite the chaos around them. But there is hope. Those who believe in unity, love, and mutual care can change the future. Look at them. Maria watched as small groups of people came together, helping one another, rebuilding destroyed homes, and protecting nature. In that tiny spark, she saw incredible strength. You must remember, the angel said, the future is not set in stone. Humanity has a choice. And your task is to tell them about it. With these words, the world before her began to dissolve slowly, leaving Maria with a feeling of profound hope and immense responsibility. As the vision of 2042 faded, Maria felt herself once again enveloped by the light. But this time, it wasn't an ordinary tunnel. The light spread infinitely, without a beginning or an end. Time disappeared, and space became limitless. She felt as though she were floating in the cosmos, not cold or empty, but warm, surrounded by an odd sensation that billions of voices, soft yet present, filled the space around her. Now I will show you something greater, the angel's voice echoed, deep and gentle at the same time. This is not just the future. This is the destiny humanity creates with its choices. Before Maria appeared an image of Earth, shining blue and green in the darkness of space. The planet rotated before her eyes, a living, breathing organism. This is the world as it could be, said the angel, and his words resonated within her mind. She saw harmony, people living in unity, sharing resources, and caring for one another. Massive spacecraft floated among the stars, and Maria realized that humanity was no longer confined to just one planet. People explored other worlds, creating new homes among distant stars while preserving Earth in its pristine, flourishing state. There are no wars, no greed here, the angel continued. Humanity has learned to live as it was originally intended, in peace with each other and nature. Maria felt an overwhelming sense of relief and joy. But then the light suddenly dimmed. The stars vanished, and before her was another image. Earth was gray, as if covered in a thick layer of ash. The water looked murky, the air seemed poisoned even from afar. This is the alternative fate, said the angel. On this planet, there were no human voices, no laughter, no life. She saw ruins that had once been majestic cities and empty plains where forests once thrived. Even the oceans appeared lifeless. Humanity lost itself, the angel explained. Divided by wars, consumed by greed and hatred, it left behind only ruins. Maria felt her heart contract in pain. Tears streamed down her face, though she no longer felt her body. Why, she whispered, barely aware of her voice. Because the choice always belongs to people, the angel replied. His voice wasn't condemning, only calm and firm. Every action, every decision creates ripples. These ripples shape the destiny of the planet. Then Maria saw both versions of Earth side by side, as though they were 2 pages of a single book. The vibrant, flourishing planet stood opposite the desolate, lifeless wasteland. Between them was something like a thin thread connecting the 2 opposites. This thread is the present, said the angel. What happens now leads humanity toward one of these fates. You see how fragile the balance is. Maria felt a strange mix of emotions, hope, despair, strength, and fear all at once. What can I do? I'm just one person, she asked, her voice filled with doubt. You can be the voice that reminds people of their choice. Sometimes even a single word, spoken at the right time, can change the world, the angel responded. Now you know. And now, this knowledge becomes your responsibility. The light around her began to flicker, as if she were being drawn back. The images of Earth disappeared, but their impressions were burned into her heart forever. Maria knew she would never be the same again. Maria felt the light around her begin to fade gradually. The infinite, vibrant space that had surrounded her moments ago began to shrink, and she felt a heaviness that she hadn't experienced during her journey. It was as though her consciousness was being pulled back, into the physical world, into the body she had left behind, now lying on the doorstep of her home. At first, the sensation was like a jolt, not physical pain, but a sudden plunge into a dense, heavy existence. She became aware of air rushing into her lungs with a loud gasp. Her chest heaved sharply, as though her body was restarting itself. She began to hear sounds, voices, movement, and the distant wail of ambulance sirens. These noises felt harsh and jarring after the serene stillness she had just left. "She's breathing," she heard her husband shout. His voice was filled with a mixture of panic and relief, but he still clutched her shoulders, shaking her slightly, as if afraid that this moment might slip away. Her eyelids fluttered open slowly. The bright light from the paramedics' equipment and the overhead bulbs felt piercing, almost painful. At first, all she could see were blurry shapes, but soon, her husband's tear-streaked face came into focus. His eyes were red and swollen, his hands trembling as he grasped hers tightly. "Maria, can you hear me? You're alive, you're here," he repeated, as though trying to convince himself as much as her. She wanted to respond, to reassure him, but her voice felt distant, disconnected. Her body, once familiar, now felt foreign, like wearing clothes that no longer fit. After a moment of struggle, she managed a faint whisper, "I'm here." Paramedics swarmed around her, checking her pulse, shining a light into her eyes, asking her questions she barely registered. Their voices seemed muffled, like distant echoes. None of it felt important. Her mind was still in the light, in the realm beyond time, where she had seen visions of what could be. When they loaded her into the ambulance, Maria felt life slowly returning to her body. It was like a switch being turned on, one part at a time, first her fingers, then her arms, then her legs. But with this return came a flood of memories, images of two possible Earths, one thriving and one devastated, and the angel's words resonating in her heart. Lying in the hospital bed later that night, with her husband sitting quietly by her side, Maria finally spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. "I saw them. I saw us. Everything that will happen depends on us." Her husband looked at her, confused but concerned, and she knew he didn't yet understand. But her tone carried a certainty that made him listen. Maria realized that what she had experienced was more than just a dream or a hallucination, it was a truth that she could not ignore. She had been given not just a second chance at life, but a mission. The weight of this responsibility filled her with a mix of gratitude, fear, and determination. "I have to tell them," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the stars outside her hospital window. They sparkled against the dark sky, reminding her of the vastness she had just left behind. The same stars she had seen beyond the threshold of time. Maria knew her life would never be the same again. Returning from the brink of death had given her not just another chance to live, but a heavy burden, a knowledge she couldn't keep to herself. At first, she wrestled with how to process everything she had seen, keeping it a secret even from those closest to her. But with each passing day, the sense of responsibility grew stronger. Her first attempt to share her story came during a quiet evening at home. Her husband, children, and a few close friends sat in the living room, listening intently as she recounted her extraordinary experience. Maria spoke of the light, the angel, the future of humanity, and the two possible fates for the planet. Her voice trembled as she described the desolate earth, tears streaming down her face. She paused often, her emotions almost overwhelming her. But when she spoke of the harmonious future, her tone was filled with hope and conviction. "Every action we take is like a stone dropped into a vast river," she said, looking each person in the eyes. "The ripples carry forward, shaping the future. We can't live as if our choices don't matter. We are creating that future, right now." The room fell silent. Her words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Some of those listening seemed skeptical, others moved. But Maria noticed something in their expressions, a flicker of reflection, as though her words had planted a seed of thought. She didn't stop there. Writing became her outlet, a way to organize the flood of memories and emotions. Her journal quickly filled with detailed accounts of her journey, and soon, these writings became the foundation for her public talks. Maria began sharing her story with anyone willing to listen. She spoke at local community events and small gatherings, where her audience sat spellbound by her descriptions of the future and her urgent message. "We've forgotten what love truly means," she said during one of her speeches. "Not just love for ourselves, but love that unites us. I've seen how that love can save the world, but only if we choose it." Her words brought some to tears and inspired others to action. She painted a vivid picture of a future where humanity worked together, building rather than destroying, understanding rather than hating. Maria didn't just speak, she acted. She joined environmental initiatives, participated in social outreach programs, and encouraged others to take small steps toward positive change. Her energy was contagious, and soon, she was surrounded by a group of people who believed in her vision. One of the most touching moments of her journey came in the form of a letter from a woman who had been struggling with grief after losing her family. "Your words gave me a reason to keep going," the letter read. "I've started to believe in goodness again because of you." As Maria read those words, tears rolled down her cheeks. In that moment, she knew her mission was bearing fruit. She understood that changing the entire world wasn't the work of one person. But she also knew that a single word, a single action, could ignite the spark of transformation. "We're not just existing," she often said. "We're creators. Our thoughts and actions are the building blocks of the future. What kind of future will we create? That's up to each of us." Maria's story became more than a warning, it was a call to action, a reminder of the power of choice. She continued to share her experiences, to inspire, and to remind others that even a single heart turned toward the light could set thousands more ablaze. If this story has touched your heart or made you see the world differently, please make sure to like this video. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the future that awaits us? Thank you for staying with us until the end.